I'm so excited to share this episode with you with the wonderful Siera Sambrosky, who is a dynamic intersection of business, self healing, and spirituality. She stands out as a beacon of transformative insight, a seasoned spiritual counselor, and business alchemist. She brings 2 decades of business consulting experience and an intuitive insight to blend practical strategies with mystical wisdom and uncover where you and your business are stuck. Unravel the knots holding you back and your business back, paving the way for a confident new beginning. So, how I would describe Siera is she's kind of like a business psychic consultant. So, your business is not going to ever outgrow or outperform where you are at personally. And Siera can tap into what it is that is holding you back, or where you might be stuck, or where you might need to make a decision in your business to move forward. We actually do a little bit of a session on me and talk about how to move through these parts yourself and how to also tap into your own intuitive and psychic abilities when you are feeling stuck. So enjoy the episode and send me a message on Instagram or LinkedIn and tell me what you think. Leave a comment in the show notes because that also helps as well. Welcome to the Seen and Heard podcast, helping you enhance your connection, evolve your mindset, and emerge confidently as your true self, living a life feeling aligned, activated, and energized. I'm your host, Prue Aja, international photographer, motivational speaker, and alignment strategist. Hey, Siera.
Hi, Prue. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm great. It was so good to connect with you last week, and I was really excited about what you do, that I just wanted to share your story and like how you help people to my audience because it's pretty incredible. Actually, how would you explain what you do?
That's probably a good question. I think I explain it differently to different people all the time, but what I really do is deeply understand that whether we're a business owner or not, whatever is we're doing in life is a direct product and deeply influenced by whatever is going on with us. And so for me, even though I am and have been a traditional business consultant for 20 years, the truth of the matter is that I can't help somebody in their business without helping them in whatever it is that's going on and coming up for them in their personal life and their emotions and their beliefs, whatever that looks like. And so because I am an intuitive medium also, I have the ability to be able to connect with spirit, their higher self, whatever language somebody likes to use around that, and know really specifically what is going on with them and how do we fix it. And then how do we fix and adjust whatever needs to happen in somebody's business.
Yeah, I love that. And that's similar to the type of coaching I do, although I'm not an intuitive medium. I am intuitive, but yeah, I truly
You
believe
are.
that a business can't outgrow its owner. And so if there's blockages happening within them, then it's going to affect what's happening on the outside as well. So I'm curious, how did you actually, discover that and then apply it to business?
Well, I mean, obviously I was born an intuitive medium. I always knew things that I wasn't supposed to know as a kid. Had information about what was happening in adults' lives and in the people that were around me. I, as a child, saw and heard dead people, even though I didn't know that they weren't there, that nobody else could see or hear them. And because of that, in the way that I grew up, the structure that I grew up, the framework that I had growing up, that was not something that anybody understood. And so it got me into a lot of trouble. And it really, I guess in some ways kind of scarred me, honestly.
Mm.
So I had shut so much of that down, and I just never really understood it. What came to be, though, was that in life, in random circumstances, and in my traditional business consulting roles, I would often know these things that just seemed completely illogical. So it was happening for me, and I was getting that information in bits and pieces all the time, even long before I ever understood it. And people would be freaked out, as one might expect them to be, sitting next to me on an airplane and they're making chit chat. And I start telling them, well, yeah, that's because this happened to you when you were a child, and da da da. And they would be like, who are you? How do you know this about me? Um,
Wow.
so it was always showing up.
And was there a moment in time when it kind of got to a point where, kind of like an awakening, where you had to really step in and start owning that because it was a part of your path?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was two really pivotal things that started that came in. I had already started meditating on my own. I had gone back to school for holistic health and counseling, and as a part of that course study, I was exposed to meditation and started doing that on my own. So I was now hearing voices in my head. And at one point, I was a single mom. And so here I was thinking that I had lost my mind because it was happening outside of when I was meditating. I would have these spells where I could like hear audibly all these voices and people saying things. And I thought for sure that I had lost my mind, that I was, schizophrenic probably, and that went into panic around what the heck am I going to do? I'm taking care of my daughter. I have to support her. I'm gonna have to go check myself in. It should have been a clue to me that I was like so rational and logical about what was gonna need to happen. Um, and something in me, I was literally praying. I was praying like, please help me to figure out what to do. And the voices stopped. And then shortly, not not too long after that, I had a chance encounter with someone who I didn't know. And it turns out that she is another intuitive and came to me and told me that I had this gift and I was meant to use it to help people. And, that we all have this gift, but some of us have it extra. And I frankly didn't think she was nuts, but I was like, I don't think I really want all this extra responsibility. I already have all kinds of responsibilities and I'm already helping all kinds of people besides myself and all this pressure. So I really kind of resisted it, honestly, for a little while. Um, and it just evolved then that I did go back to her. She was deeply religious. She's still here and I'm still connected to her. She's deeply religious. She actually is like super Catholic and had her own personal struggle with understanding her spiritual gifts, worrying that within the religion we're kind of taught that can be sacrilegious or it's, some potentially evil, and that there's all these things that we're not supposed to be able to do per se, in the religion container. And so she struggled with that and just really helped me to understand it more deeply, how to work with it and use it. And then it was kind of like the floodgates opened up in a lot of ways.
So when you had those voices, you actually ended up shutting them down because you felt like you were going crazy. Like, how long was that period of time? Because I've definitely felt like that before as well. I'm like, oh my God, what is going on? I feel crazy.
Yeah. Um, I had several bouts of it. It wasn't like it lasted every day, all day for weeks or anything like that. I think probably over the course of maybe about 6 months, though, I would have like maybe once a week, I would have this spell and it would be kind of dizzying. And like I said, I would hear all these voices and things. A lot of times it was everybody kind of talking at once over top of each other. So it just sounded like being in a loud room. But it was like this very audible experience. Like I said, it was literally like they were all in the room with me and I was alone. And
Wow.
for me, I've come to learn now that we do have control over it, that we can say, I don't want to experience this that way. And we can decide how we are communicated with, because we all do have the gifts. Every single one of us is a divine soul, a divine energy. And so we always have that connection. We're never actually really separated. It's just about learning to recognize it and learning to trust it. But like I said, some of us just, I always say, some people are really great at sports or really great at math or really great at art. We can all learn to do those things, but some of us just have like a heavier dose naturally.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's what we're naturally drawn to, and yeah, it's going to come and hit you in the face if you don't listen to
Yeah,
that little whisper as well.
yeah. And we all have those experiences, right, in our life where there's times where you're like, I knew in that moment I should have done this, or I shouldn't have done that, or I should have trusted this person, or I shouldn't have trusted that person. We can always look back and see. And a lot of times it is our intuition, it is, our gut, some people call it, that is telling us something, but we're always being guided and we're always connected. I know that to be true.
So with being guided and listening to your gut intuition, because sometimes we get these whispers and it's like, okay, you kind of get this feeling like, oh, I want to go and study that, or I want to just randomly go to that coffee shop today. But then your brain comes in and goes, no, but you shouldn't do that because you need to get back to that email, or you need to do that job, or you've got to do this. And why would you go and study that? And so I've been in points in my life where I've gone, which one's my head and which one's my intuition, and how to differentiate that. Do you have any tips around that?
Sure. I mean, once you start to practice with it, because it is a muscle, so once we start to practice with it, you do recognize that it almost comes from a different part of your brain. That, the critical brain is usually, for me, it's always up front. That's the self story, that's the ego part of myself that's giving me some kind of direction. Whereas the intuitive, the spiritual part of me feels like it comes from more like behind me. It's more, so sometimes people can recognize that it actually is coming from a different place. Another thing that I often say people is recognize how your body feels, because a lot of us are not particularly in tune with our emotions. And so you can often be able to actually feel it in your body. So if you're hearing yourself say, no, I need to get back to the house, and you're like bringing your shoulders up, or there's like a constricted feeling in your body, then you typically know that is the story in your head. That's the ego. That's your rational mind that is telling you that, and not necessarily your intuition. Your intuition will always feel light in your body and more expansive, however it is that looks. The other thing I think is always too is that your intuition, your divine self, and that information that comes through to you is, in my experience, is never critical. It's never judgmental. It's never telling you what you should do. It's
So
simply
if there's
giving you a joyful nudge.
okay, so if there's a should attached, it's usually the ego or the critical mind.
Absolutely.
So that could almost be a checkpoint.
Yeah. Yeah. Anytime that we are feeling that we should do something, it's usually out of some sense of a belief pattern or a sense of responsibility. It's almost always picking up on something that somebody else is that we're carrying as our own.
So then, because you've got this skill so sharpened, so when it comes for you to make decisions, do you ever make wrong decisions anymore because you're so tapped into
Absolutely.
your intuition?
Yeah. You know, it certainly, and I joke about this a lot, and in particular when I was first learning to really understand and harness it all for myself, I would argue. I would like get stuff in meditation. I would get nudges and I would rationalize it and think, no, I don't really want to do that. And oh, that's probably my imagination. That's usually another clue too. When something seems like a really spontaneous, random thought and we want to write it off as our imagination, the imagination really is a creative force. It really is our creative energy, which in my understanding is the same thing as your divine knowledge and your divine guidance. So anytime that we want to write something off as being, well, that's just crazy, or I don't know why I even thought about that, or I don't know where that came from, I don't have time for that. Those are usually those indications. But I absolutely argued. I would rationalize. I so rationalize, and I still do it to a certain degree. It's just that I catch myself faster now. Instead of going all the way down the path anymore, I pretty much recognize almost straight away, okay, wait a minute. I think I'm dismissing something here. I think I'm rationalizing something away.
It's so interesting. Because, yeah, I get those downloads meditating. Like a month ago, 2 months ago, I was meditating and I had this idea come in and go, you need to connect with that videographer and hire a beautiful house for the day and do this collaborative shoot. And I actually just trusted it and went with it. And it worked out perfectly. We booked out within 24 hours. So it was like that natural nudge that I listened to. And I have to make a decision today about something quite big, which is leaving the country next week for a week to go and do something. And I'm like fighting myself so badly because last year I was like, oh, I really want to go and do that thing. And now the opportunities come up going, well, you should go and do that thing. But then my brain's going, yeah, but every time you go and do these things, you come back and then you're like, have no money and you're stressed out. And then I'm just caught and I'm like, oh, what's going on? And then lots of fear and sabotage is coming up. And so I get it almost, because I don't make the decision quick enough, I get intertwined and in this like tight little mess. What do you do?
And so I would say, Prue, given what I just told you about the signs and how to know what's intuitive and what's not, if you're feeling all intertwined and knotted up about the rational side of it, that's the part that's your ego mind. I can tell, I mean, if you really want to know, I can tell you. You're supposed to go do it. I would say you are supposed to go do it. What's really interesting though, is they said, as soon as you started talking about it, I was like, yeah, she's supposed to go. There's no question about it. The important thing for you to remember is to change the story you tell yourself. You know, you said that your rational mind is telling you every time you go do this, I come back and then I have no money and there's all that. Tell yourself that this is a different experience. This time you will go back and you'll have a different experience when you come home.
Okay. Yeah, because it's a very powerful time with these solar eclipses happening at the moment. And I'm a Libra with Aries rising. So I'm like in the middle of it. And
I'm an Aries. I would say, and I'm an Aries with 2 planets in Libra. So I'm the same.
Oh, you're feeling it too. Feeling a bit insane.
Yeah. It's a very powerful time. It is.
And I feel like a lot of shadows from last year that I thought I'd really cleared out are just coming up again. It's like, hey, I thought we already looked at this and let it go. What are you doing?
Yeah, that's had a lunar eclipse. I would say astrology is not super my thing, but because this lands so squarely into what my chart looks like, I've done a really healthy amount of research around it. And I will say that the lunar eclipse that just passed was all about endings and completions. So it really is the last, and a lot of karmic clearing for a lot of people. It really is kind of like the last shreds of what has been your patterns and your beliefs and your wounds finally leaving.
Well, I hope so. I feel like they say that every moon, but I think this one's like a 12-year cycle or something. So it is stuff from a really long time.
Yeah, and especially like I said, if you're in the Libra Aries axis, these are extra intense for us right now.
And so this trip is actually going to the number one place on Earth from NASA, to view the solar eclipse
Ooh,
on the 8th. So it's like
that sounds
going to
super exciting.
is very intense. It's a expedition with Insider Expeditions, and I'll be going and doing photos of capturing the event, but also portraits of the musicians and the people that are going to be there. So yeah, it's
I don't know why you would say no to this.
I know
It
it's
sounds
just
awesome.
I think because I've been feeling a bit anxious and just like yucky stuff coming up with this moon, that it has felt a bit sabotaging myself, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm curious when you like just then when you tapped into guides. Now, are they my guides or are they your guides? How does that work?
Well, in my belief, they're the same
Okay.
because we all are one. It is all, it's that whole idea that we are all just drops of the same ocean. So, in a lot of ways, my guides are your guides. Um, it's we do have ones that we more directly connect with on an individual basis. I would say that because of my abilities and where I am, I would more likely tap into ones that are more directly connected to you than they are directly connected to me. And yet,
Okay.
like I said, they're also kind of the same.
Yeah, and do they come in through? So when I imagine you're talking to your guides, and I did a meditation the other day to call in your guides because it's something that I do want to develop more. I imagine them as like these physical little ghosts kind of behind you, but is it more just voices that kind of download?
Well, I mean, we can all experience them however we want, honestly. You get to, it's just like I said, you get to decide. You get to choose what you want that experience to be. For me personally, I always explain it as it's like reading a book for me. So, when you read a book and you read a part that has conversation in it, you hear the conversation in your head, and yet it's not your own thoughts. It's coming from this other place, right? When I read a book, I can see the scene as it's being described and painted out to me, and yet I'm not really seeing anything. That's how I also get kind of the vision. For me personally, I also can have a very strong sensation. I can sometimes be overwhelmed by a feeling. Sometimes it's a physical sensation in the body, and yet it's not actually happening. I would say, I know this sounds super weird. I don't even know how else to
No,
explain it.
I
Um,
love.
but yeah, I get it in all different kinds of ways, though it's not literal. And also, when I do like a guided meditation for myself and I meet a guide or I meet an angel or an ascended master, they all can have sort of a visual quality about them as I'm, in that space with them. But typically when I'm working with somebody and like when you just ask me, I don't see anything.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And do you know anything about, just before someone has a big breakthrough, sometimes a lot of fear can come up or they have this kind
Hmm.
of cleanse or anything? Do you know much about that?
Yeah. Sure. I mean, the biggest part of it is that our fears, our beliefs, our emotions, the things that come up is always something trying to get your attention to be released. So before we go through a big transformation in our lives, as we are trying, because a lot of us try to do healing and up level ourselves and our lives and our understanding and our connection to them, it's going to culminate and bring up all these things. Like I said, whether it's beliefs, whether it's fears, whether it's emotions, sometimes it's experiences that are all coming up that are really just pointing you to whatever it is that needs to be released. So it absolutely makes sense that the bigger you are going to take a jump, if you do the work, if you actually allow yourself to go through it rather than suppress it or repress it, if you go through it, it will clear it away so that it no longer is an issue for you. But I know, like a few minutes ago, you had said about, you felt like you had cleared these things. It is like an onion.
Yeah.
But all that means and we can be really self-critical and be in a lot of comparison and self-judgment. And so we feel like I already did this. I thought I cleared this. I thought I healed this. I went to therapy. I thought I had forgiven them, whatever those stories are that we tell you. But all it really means is that you are just now at a different level. You now are at a deeper part and you're being asked to move again. And so it has to resurface. Do you hit a point where it's completely cleared out and it will be gone? Yes, with some things.
Thank God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's interesting, like the stuff that's coming up for me is it's sabotaging going and doing this trip. And there's a part of me, it's like, I just stay home. Like, I just play it safe, take care of things that need to be taken care of. And that actually feels a bit calming for me. I'm like, oh, that feels better than
Yeah.
the niggles there. It's like, yeah, but what if?
The thing with that is that it is cliche, and yet it's cliche for a reason. It's because it's true. We are feeling more safe and more comfortable in the places that we've always been, right? So there, like the whole truth around, why you continuously attract in a particular kind of relationship that is toxic or unhealthy or dysfunctional has the same aspects as we saw in our parents, or our dynamic was with our parents, or we saw them have with each other. And it's because there's a part of you that recognizes that. There's a part of you that is familiar, and so it gives you a sense of certainty because you know what that dynamic looks like. And so
Yeah.
that's true with any area of our lives. When we are in the same space, the level that we're at, the operating place that we're at, will feel certain and comfortable. But you have to just ask yourself, but do I like it? Am I okay where I am? Or are there things that I want to change? And the answer, if it is that there are things that I want to change, there are things that I want to do differently, well, then you're going to have to get uncomfortable.
Interesting. And is that something that you help people work through as well?
Oh, for sure. I was going to
Yeah.
say, I don't even know. I think for many people, believe it or not, don't have necessarily a really deep spiritual framework or experience. Some of them don't even have hardly any personal development experience. And so coming to me and working with me alone is usually uncomfortable. And it is always because it's what I asked for in my work when I work with somebody and when I work with spirit to help someone, is to show me the things that need to be shaken loose, to show me the things that they need to release, that they need to reprogram, that they need to process, that they haven't processed, that they've suppressed or they've been unaware of. And so, yeah, it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable.
That is so good to know. And I'm sure people listening to this will totally resonate with all of that. And I'm so glad that someone like you exists to help them through
Oh,
that.
thank
And
you.
with, helping them connect to their higher self and be guided and learn to trust that intuition more as well. It's super important.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm saying a lot of times people say to me, oh, I've been thinking about that, or I always wanted to do that. Like, again, and that's one thing I would leave in everybody with, is that you really are being guided all the time, whether you work with someone like me or not. We really are. And so, trust that when something feels persistent and kind of out of the blue, that it really is its way of guiding you, just as repeating patterns and seeing ourselves cycle back into the same dynamic or making the same mistake again is just another way that you're being shown and guided and pushed to make changes and to deal with something and move and do it differently.
Even though it's going to be scary sometimes.
It can be. It can be. It can be all kinds of things that are unpleasant. I'm not even going to lie. I never lie about it. I never lie about it.
That's something that they don't tell you as a kid. It's like, yeah, follow your dreams, but it's going to be scary. It's going to be hard. You're going to have to do some work, but the highs will outweigh the lows.
Yeah. If people don't tell you that about personal development or spiritual development either. They make it all sound like, oh, you have this big awakening, and then all of a sudden you have this inner peace. And no, you got to dig up a lot of crap. There's a lot of purging and a lot of crying and a lot of things that have to come through. Now, does it have to be gnashing of the teeth for 10 years? No, it doesn't. But it's not all like rainbows and fairies and connecting to angels all the time.
Well, thank you so much for your time. It was really awesome chatting with you. And yeah, I think the listeners got to experience a little bit about what you do as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I'll leave some links in the show notes of how people can connect with you as well.
Okay, awesome. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
If you're yearning for an adventure that transcends the ordinary, picture yourself surrounded by the awe-inspiring beauty of places like Antarctica, sharing moments with incredible individuals. Insider Expeditions will take you there. I have a very special discount offer for you as a valued listener in the show notes for upcoming expeditions. So seize the opportunity to embark on an adventure that promises not just a trip, but an experience of a lifetime, just like this one. And I might even see you there. Remember, just like today's guest, the world needs your gifts. So shine your light, own your power, show up, and be seen and heard. If you're now feeling inspired and motivated and believe this episode can inspire someone in your community, please hit share on your favorite social media platform. It truly means so much to me. Each month, I also choose one podcast listener that writes a review to receive a special gift, a personal one-on-one align and energize strategy session designed to get you back on track to living your best life. To find out other ways you can work with me, head over to pruaja.com, where you can find links to my upcoming photo shoot tour dates, coaching, mentoring, and my upcoming retreat in Byron Bay. Or if you're looking for a motivational speaker for your next event, I would love to help you out. Thank you.